Follow Classic Game Room on Twitch and Patreon. Welcome to Classic Game Room's Halloween Spectacular. This is the review of Nightmare Creatures on the PlayStation.
He works alone, his hands defiling the bodies of the dead in his thirst for knowledge and power. His name is Adam Crowley, a man who was once...
Wasn't that the guy from Downton Abbey? Is this what he did after killing himself in a car crash? He creates an army of monsters to take over London, but the date is all wrong. This game takes place in 1834, released in 1997 for the PlayStation. It's Nightmare Creatures from Kalisto and Activision. Yes, I've seen Downton Abbey. My wife enjoyed it, and I like to watch for Lady Sybil. Frankly, I was disappointed they didn't bring her back as a hot zombie. Disregard what I said earlier. It's Matthew Crawley. Sorry, I checked the internet. He died in a snowmobile accident. What is this thing? What is the actual purpose of this monster? And anyway, do you tire of Bloodborne? If so, it's time to play some Nightmare Creatures. It's kind of the same, except not at all. Think Tomb Raider, except darker and not as good. I'm playing it here on the PlayStation. I understand it's also on the N64 with terrible controls, and that frightens me because the controls aren't that good on the PlayStation version either. But for all of this game's faults, I think a lot of them can be attributed to the fact that it just simply hasn't aged all that well. It's actually not that bad. Provided you cut it some slack, 1997, 98, remember the era. Tomb Raider was really hot back then, the PlayStation was really popular, so they were churning out a lot of Me Too games back then. While the environments here aren't very exciting at all, the gameplay isn't too bad. It's really challenging. Unlike a lot of the modern games, you don't just respawn somewhere or go back to a checkpoint, you lose a life. This game has lives. Which personally I always find frustrating in these kinds of games. That means that you really have to memorize the levels, start from the beginning, and do well. Or just find a cheat code on the internet. The controls are archaic, as you might imagine, and if killing a bunch of scary monsters trying to eat your brains isn't terrifying enough, if you don't kill anything by the time that blue vial on the left drains to the bottom, you lose a life, so you really can't explore either. This game will save data on a memory card or your PlayStation 3, which is what I'm using. It also has a password save system. I actually played about halfway through it, but to be honest, I found it quite boring. Nightmare Creatures never takes you anywhere, except another street that looks exactly the same. It's not a terrible game. I think it would have been way more fun back in the day, but games like Soul Reaver just blow it away. Because that game was actually interesting. They made a sequel for this one, Nightmare Creatures 2, and we reviewed it on the original run of the Game Room way back in 2000 or so. I don't remember it actually being all that good either. I'm not sure how many of these they made. It's not terrible, but it's not remarkable either. This probably isn't one that you're going to revisit anytime soon. If you haven't played Nightmare Creatures but like these kinds of games, maybe you think this looks interesting, may I direct you to the Soul Reaver series, particularly on the Dreamcast. Nightmare Creatures on the PlayStation is decidedly average. It's not awful. Maybe it's a good Halloween kind of game. You have two characters to choose from, and I ended up actually playing through the last couple levels with passcodes I found online. The end boss to the game was no harder than just running into some random zombie on the street. I think they assumed everyone would get bored and die before they got there. Just pin him against a wall and kick and spin repeatedly. That same tactic can be applied to all of the difficult enemies, by the way. Nightmare Creatures! The back of the box says, "A bloody good time in jolly old London." Sure, why not? It does have a lot of beheadings and dismemberment, so that's kind of fun. And I do have a classic game room shout out and thank you going all the way to Alex from Tagia in the province of Imperia, Italy. Thank you very much, Alex. Let's get you up there on the map. Nightmare Creatures for the PlayStation. Recommended only if every other copy of Soul Reaver in existence has been disintegrated and you don't have anything else to do. This review has been brought to you by Lord Carnage and the best of Classic Game Room. Alright, if you're gonna buy the game anyway, buy it through ClassicGameroom.com. Welcome to the club. It's the Lord Carnage Club, where I thank these backers on Patreon by shouting their name in a volcano from within the zone of danger. Jeff Breyer. Jeff Breyer. Derek Langley. Derek Langley. Michael and Ariana Nelson. Michael and Ariana Nelson. Michael Fernandez. Those not named Michael Fernandez aren't Michael Fernandez. Stephen Chucknick. Stephen Chucknick. Al Stiver. Al Stiver. Rick DeBarros. Rick DeBarros. Jason Goy. Jason Goy. Sergio Matthias Hergert. Chip Sink Bale. Chip Sink Bale. Busy Signal. Still busy. Sean Zoltek. Sean Zoltek. Philip Strabenmuller. Phil does the dance of safety in the zone of danger. Jack Stavris. Jack Stavris. Ohad Kane.